Here's a sample of what you'll hear on this episode of Holistic Health Matters.
I challenge people so much that the quality of their life begins with what they're thinking and feeling about themselves. Because if those thoughts are negative, so is the direction you're going to walk. So are the outcomes you're going to produce. My goal for me is to continue to live young until I have no breath left in my lungs.
Welcome to the Holistic Health Matters podcast, where it's all about maximizing our health potential in spirit, mind, and body so that we can pursue the abundant life more effectively. I'm your host, David Sandstrom, naturopathic doctor and biblical health coach, and this is episode number 36. This episode is brought to you by my book, The Christian's Guide to Holistic Health. If you're frustrated with the New Age thought that permeates the natural and holistic health space, my book is a breath of fresh air. I've spent more than 20 years researching natural and holistic health, and what I discovered is that we maximize our health potential by aligning our lives more fully with God's design for the whole person, spirit, mind, and body. The information in my book can not only increase your physical vitality, but make you stronger mentally, emotionally, and draw you closer to God. If you'd like to cut through the noise and get some biblically based information that you can implement right away, go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/book, and order your copy today. Today we have on the show Shawn Anderson. Shawn is an amazing guy, and he's got a little bit of Forrest Gump inside of him, as you're about to hear. He's an expert at inspiring and motivating people, and we're going to be talking about conquering limiting beliefs and the power of going the extra mile. I think you're going to enjoy hearing from him. So let's jump into my conversation with Shawn Anderson. As a motivational speaker, Shawn Anderson is the guy that walks the talk. A business success, a 7-time best-selling author, a world travel adventurer who has pedaled the U.S. on a bike twice, run a 100-mile race, created adventures in close to 50 countries, including having walked across England, Ireland, Japan, Spain, Portugal, and Italy. Shawn has inspired, motivated, and empowered tens of thousands of people. No one delivers the go the extra mile message more powerfully than the guy who has inspired world record holders, big city mayors, media outlets around the world, and everyone in between. Shawn, welcome to the show.
David, it's my privilege to be on your show today. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about who Shawn Anderson is. How did you end up becoming a motivational writer and speaker?
Well, I've always billed myself as an ordinary guy who believes in doing his best to live an extraordinary life. And, I wasn't born with any great privilege, but I was born with a great heart, a heart and an understanding that we can create the life we want depending on the amount of effort we put into creating that life. And so ever since a young age, I've always understand the rules of cause and effect. And so I've made sure that I'm the person that's doing the causing, and hopefully the effects turn out the way they have. And I've been blessed to have lived a substantial life, and I sense that my best days are still coming.
Excellent. I'm curious, and I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to this show are curious as well. How long did it take you to ride a bike across America?
The first time I did it as a non-bicyclist, and the story behind that one is, I had become a vegetarian, and a lot of people said, "Wow, man, you look so unhealthy. You're so thin. You lost so much weight." And I have this thing about me that I love the challenge. And I said, "I'll show you how unhealthy I am." So on that Friday, I went to a store in California called REI, and I bought myself a bike. On that Monday, I dipped the back tire of that bike in the Pacific Ocean near San Francisco. And 48 days later, I dipped the front tire in the Atlantic Ocean near Virginia Beach, Virginia. So,
wow.
That was 83 miles a day average for a non-bicyclist. And that's how all my great adventures, my long trekking adventures began, was with that first tour.
It's kind of Forrest Gump-ish. What made you decide to do that? Why did you want to tackle that?
Well, again, it was just the challenge at that particular time of people thinking that I was unhealthy, but yet on the inside, my vitality felt so strong. Like I said, I'd become a vegetarian and I just felt this new wave of energy come over me. And I thought I could do that. Now, people would say, well, you're crazy to be a non-bicyclist and think you could pedal across the country. But yet I knew that I had two things. I had strong legs because I was a jogger, and I had a strong heart, man. I don't know the word quit. And if you put me on a bike seat and you show me and tell me where to go, I'm getting there. And so that's what had happened.
All right. Obviously, you're operating at a very high physical level, probably a level higher than I'll ever achieve and higher than most people can only dream of. And I know from my study and writing my book and the research I did that you can't operate at that kind of a physical level without having your mental emotional game down. And I'm a firm believer that there's three parts to a human being. We are a spirit, we have a mind, and we live in a body. And without that mental emotional component that's going on in our mind being right, you're never going to achieve the kind of physical vitality and operate at the level that you're obviously operating at. So I'd like to jump into a little bit about your mental emotional game. Tell me what was going through your head when you started that bike ride.
Well, first off, I appreciate that question. And just to let people know, I'm not young in age. I'm just young in heart. I'm 58 years old. So for people who think that they're over 50 or 55 or even 60 or 70 or whatever, man, you're only as old as you ever think you are.
I'm 58 as well.
Yeah. So, we got it in us. We've got it in us if we just believe and start working towards that. Now, this is what's interesting. You've asked me what kind of mental strength do I have? What kind of emotional strength do I have that allows me to succeed in doing these? The truth of it is I call these adventures my axe sharpening adventures. I go do them to become stronger. I go do them to find my greater passion, my greater resolution, my greater intention, my more magnified purpose. Because once you complete something so enormous that has pushed you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and you reach the other side, you can't help but become bigger and better and loaded with more intention. So again, I go to get sharper. I don't go because I'm sharp.
I get it. So you're about growth. You're about personal development.
Yeah, I'm about not dying while I'm here, right? I think a lot of people, as they get older, they think that retirement, it should be play, fun, whatever. And it is, if that's what you want, it is. But it doesn't mean that we become less valuable. I believe that right now I am more valuable than I've ever been, ever. And every person of whatever age is, because come on, as we get older, shouldn't we also get smarter, wiser? Shouldn't we also become more insightful? Shouldn't we also know what it takes to succeed and not succeed? So oftentimes I feel that our society throws away age when age is such a valuable component to success in however you want it. And so my goal for me is to continue to live young until I have no breath left in my lungs.
Absolutely. Amen, brother. A lot of people say, oh, well, Dave, you're eating healthy, you're doing all that health stuff, but, you're not going to live forever. Well, no, I'm not going to live forever here on this earth, but it's not about adding years to my life so much as it is about adding life to my years. I want to be vibrant and active into my later years, into retirement. I want to be there for my grandkids. I want to be able to bend down and pick them up when I'm 80 years old and hang with them and do activities. It's about living a vibrant life well into the later years, which I believe we're designed to do. We're not supposed to be old and decrepit the last, 15, 20 years,
right,
and spend the last 3 years of our lives in a nursing home. That's not in our design.
Right. I agree with that. And it's our greatest contribution should truly come at the end of our life, because that's when we become hardened with these lessons, these every day that we've walked, the scars that show on our skin, man, those are lessons that we've learned. The scars that are in our hearts and our minds, man, those are the lessons that we should be passing forward in making our greatest contribution, the contribution of those last couple of years of our life.
Yeah, I agree. And that's when you're full of wisdom and you're full of things to share. And I know part of your message, Sean, is about focusing on others as opposed to being self-focused, but let's get into that a little bit later. There's a couple other questions I want to talk about this mindset that you've got. It's my contention that our mental emotional component has three primary focus areas. One is limiting beliefs. The other is the self-talk or the inner dialogue that we have with ourselves as we go throughout our days, and emotional intelligence. I got to believe there's somebody out there listening right now that says, wow, this guy rode a bike across the United States, not once, but twice. I could never do that. He just has something special. What would you say to that person? What would you say to that limiting belief?
To the person who doesn't think that he can do something, that person is absolutely right. That person is absolutely right, because whether we get off the starting line or not is a matter of if we think we can. If we get to the finish line or not is a matter if we think we can. Because it doesn't even matter what's in the middle of that starting line and that finish line if you're not believing in you and willing to overcome whatever is in between that beginning and that end, man, you got no chance. So I challenge people so much that the quality of their life begins with what they're thinking and feeling about themselves. Because if those thoughts are negative, so is the direction you're going to walk. So are the outcomes you're going to produce. We've only got a shot at getting through this as successfully as we want when we believe we're going to get through it successfully. That's the belief that I live with every single day. Does it mean I succeed all the time? No. It doesn't mean that I succeed yet, but I never give up. I still keep going. And eventually, if you keep chipping away at a piece of wood, if you keep throwing that axe down upon it, it will split.
What would you say to somebody that probably more easy to understand how they're not going to match your physical vitality? But let's say it's something a little more mundane. Everybody in my family has been overweight. Heart disease runs in my family. I'll probably die of a heart attack before 70. Those kinds of limiting beliefs can become self-fulfilling prophecies. Speak to that for a minute. For the person who's interested in health, but has this kind of cloud hanging over their head about saying, well, I might not have the genetics for that. What would you say to that person?
Well, I believe that, sure, we absolutely are born with a certain DNA, but we have the ability to flip the switch and change the direction. I grew up in a two alcoholic parent family, but that doesn't mean that I have to be an alcoholic. That doesn't mean that I had to accept my destiny. I think if you have that kind of background, in a way, you can look at it as being empowering, because if you know you come from a background, a family with heart disease, then you should be doing everything you can to flip the switch and go a different direction. You've got that power in you. Now, you can choose to roll over and give milk and go ahead and just say that's my destiny, but that's just not the sort of guy I am. And deep down, I believe it's not the sort of guy, woman, person that any of us really want to be. I'm a big believer in creating my own destiny, not in accepting that cards that I was dealt with at the beginning of life. And the more that we learn to trust in ourselves, the more that we learn to put forward positive action, we start to change the destiny that we might have been given. And so if you believe that you have this heart disease or these troubled knees or whatever, and you can't exercise, I think that that's false thinking. I think it's absolutely false thinking, because what you're doing is you're just setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for what you're going to get. And I say, man, this is your chance. This is your time. This is your time to do what's right, to change your path. So do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Just because Uncle Joe died of a heart attack at 55, that doesn't mean it's your destiny. Yeah, we all have a set of genetics, but nurture is far more important than nature when it comes to our health outcomes. The choices that we make on a day-to-day basis have a profound impact on our health and vitality. People got to understand that.
Yeah, it's just what you choose to believe. What do you choose to believe is your reality? Because that's what's going to become your reality.
When I was on your website, Sean, I saw a quote that you liked. It's from Benjamin Franklin. And he said this: "You can do good for yourself by doing great for others." What does that mean to you?
Well, I've always inspired myself by first looking to inspire other people. I mean, if you want to find more value in yourself, you don't begin by looking to add value. You look to create value elsewhere. The more you give, the more you become. I become a more motivational guy the more I seek to motivate other people. My life improves the more I seek to improve other people's life. It's I don't know where that happened. I've always been a guy that's tried to create win-win situations. Zig Ziglar planted that into me at an early stage, and maybe it's just evolved more. The more that we help other people win, the more that we give other people, the more that's going to boomerang back to us. And maybe the boomerang isn't in material possessions or things that you can reach out and say, oh, look, I got that. But I'll tell you what, the one thing that I've learned as I've got older is it's my greatest rewards don't come back in the form of material things that I can point to. My greatest rewards have come back into things that I can feel and that I can think, because, and that's really the most valuable of all gifts, because when we start changing how we feel and we think, we change everything else around us. And the more I give, the greater I affect those two things, my thinking and my feelings.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I'm a fan of Zig Ziglar as well. I'm going to try to get this quote right. One of the things he was fond of saying was, you can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want.
Yeah, man, I love Zig.
Yeah, he's awesome. He was awesome. The Bible teaches that as well. Jesus taught that it's more blessed to give than to receive. In book of Matthew, chapter 5, it says, whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. The background behind that is, back in those days, a Roman soldier could just assign you to carry his equipment for 1 mile, and you'd have to walk 1 mile with this soldier. So Jesus taught, well, if he asked you to walk 1 mile, and do it too. Go the extra mile. And I know you've got a whole movement called the Extra Mile, right?
I do.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. So you've decided to make some improvements to your health and well-being. You're listening to shows like this where you can get information that can help take your health to the next level. The trouble is, getting educated and implementing effective strategies is time-consuming and can be expensive, not to mention overwhelming. I want to help you with that. In my book, The Christian's Guide to Holistic Health, I've taken 20 years of research and experience as a natural and holistic health coach and distilled it down to what you need to know. It's my contention that we maximize our health potential by aligning our lives more fully with God's design for spirit, mind, and body. The Christian's Guide to Holistic Health will put you on the fast track to the vibrant health and vitality you've been looking for. By the way, many of my recommendations won't cost you a nickel. They're free, because a lot of my message is simply aligning our lives more fully with the Word of God. That doesn't cost you a thing. If you'd like to avoid overwhelm and implement some biblically based holistic health advice that's not sprinkled with New Age thought, go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/book, and pick up a copy today. That's DAVIDSANDSTROM as in Mike, .com/book. If that doesn't work, you can go directly to Amazon. It's available there in paperback, Kindle, and Audible. Now let's get back to the show. And I know you've got a whole movement called the Extra Mile, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was in 2009 and the country was going through a real bad time. We had lost a lot of faith in ourselves. I think we were in a financial crisis. The auto industry, the housing industry, the banking industry, they were all tumbling and crumbling. And I felt a lot of people started thinking, wow, is my situation going to get better? They started looking to the government and saying, what are you going to do to make sure my life's better? They looked at their boss. What are you going to do to make sure that not only we keep our company afloat, but that I keep my paycheck? They even would look at their partner. What are you doing to make our relationship better? Back then, I felt that people lost the general belief that if you truly want to make your life better, you don't look at the government, your boss, you don't look at your spouse, your partner, your friend, your family, your neighbor, but you look at the man or the woman in the mirror and you say, what are you going to do to make life better? So I wanted to use my small voice and remind people that if you truly want to make a difference in life, you've got to go the extra mile, because every time that we keep doing the same thing we keep doing, if we go the same mile, we keep walking, we're not going to improve anything. So it's about going the extra mile. So in a Forrest Gump sort of way, I got I'd only pedaled a bike once before. That was across the country. So I get back on the bike again to go across the country. And in this time, that was as a symbol of going the extra mile. But the real power of that tour was my staff created events in 21 cities where with the mayors of those cities, I had the chance to interview over 200 people who had been identified as having gone the extra mile in life. And either in either achieving an awesome dream or in doing something beautiful for society. At the end of my tour, I wanted to continue to add to that extra mile message. And so I gave away $10,000 of my own money to the stories most inspiring to me. So that's how Extra Mile America started. And ever since then, we've just been building on that.
Do some of those cities have an extra mile day now?
Well, this is the funny thing. So I'm pedaling a bike across the state of Nevada. Nevada is the only state that you can pedal across on a freeway with all the cars. So the big trucks and the cars are passing me just feet away. And there's one stretch about 65 miles where there's no rest stop. And I don't know if you've ever gone through the state of Nevada, but at the time of the year we were going, it was about 110 degrees. So no rest stop, 110 degrees. I'm in the middle of the Extra Mile America tour. I just left the town of Reno. I'm on my way to Salt Lake City, and I'm trying to brainstorm. How can we get more attention for Extra Mile? How can we do this? So I had this idea of creating Extra Mile Day. And I thought, okay, well, what day is it going to be? And I just liked how the ones lined up 1-1-1. So I made it November 1st, 11-1. And then I go, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to have the mayors recognize those people in their community who are going the extra mile in volunteerism and service. And I go, wow, that's so awesome. We're going to do it. As soon as I got to a phone, I called my staff and said, let's work with some of these mayors. Let's have them recognize volunteer heroes in their community. November 1st, 2009, I couldn't believe that there were 23 crazy nutcase mayors that believed in what I was thinking. 23. Well, last year, November 1st, 2020, there were 512 mayors across the United States that declared Extra Mile Day and recognized their volunteer heroes.
Wow. That is inspiring. That is a really cool story. I got to share the story. I have 12-year-old twins, but when they were 10, they came to me and said, Dad, one of the counselors at school showed us a YouTube video, and it was a girl who had a lemonade stand, and she was raising money for slavery. She called it slavery because she was a young girl, but it was for human trafficking. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They took their lemonade stand, her and her folks, to Times Square, and they raised $100,000 in a week. And my daughter looks at me and says, can we do something like that? I'm like, well, we could do something like that. So we went down to the city hall, we got a permit, and we started doing our own bake sales. And we went out in front of a local shopping center. And it's taken us almost 2 years because COVID really put a monkey wrench in our schedule. But we just finished last week. We had our last bake sale, and we raised $7,600 to pay for a home for a truly needy family down in Haiti. 2-bedroom home built out of concrete and steel and solar power, running water. It really was a great, fun project. And I can tell you, we were so energized when we did those bake sales, and the people that stepped up to donate, you could see how they were really blessed themselves by having this. We were just giving them the opportunity to give. It truly is more blessed to give than to receive. And that's one of the things that falls under the heading of the spiritual component to health. But when you do something like that for other people, something happens to you, and it's positive. It's a very good thing.
Wow, that's so huge. David, do you mind sharing the first name of your two daughters?
Faith and Hope.
Man, this message right now is for you, Faith and Hope. I got to tell you, you inspire me. Now you're 12. You started this when you were 10. Mm-hmm. You inspire me. Thank you so much for the contribution that you gave to these people in Haiti. And I can tell you that I will take your lessons and I will continue to do bigger things because of your example. So thank you. All
right. I'll make sure they hear that. Sean, what would you say, going the extra mile, how can that make a difference in our lives?
Fiddlesticks, man. Dave, I'll tell you what, every area that you go the extra mile, it makes a difference. If I do 10 more push-ups today, I get stronger. If I send out one more inspiring email or message to another person, I make the world a little bit better. If I do one nice gesture to a friend or family member, I might help them overcome a tough day. If I do one more thing today for my own career, I might push a little bit further, maybe financially, or rise up in the company. Because it's a fact of life that each time we keep giving more, we open the door to more coming back at us. So every time we give extra, extra has a chance of coming back. So I'll tell you what, there's not a single area that you can't go the extra mile. And if you're somebody out there right now that feels that you're suffering or not as strong in an area that you want to be, I tell you what, you make a plan, you write it down about how you can do more. And every day you hold yourself a little bit accountable to doing more. You know, I wrote a newsletter recently called 3 times 365. And what 3 times 365 is: every single day, do one thing more for your purpose. Every single day, do one thing more for another person. Every single day, do one thing more for your health. 3 times 365. I can assure you that if you go the extra mile and follow that sort of plan, when December 31st rolls around of this year, you're going to have lived one of the best years you've ever lived.
That is awesome. There's so much truth packed into those words, Sean. I got to share a quick story. When I started training to become a pilot when I was 18 years old, didn't have any money. I was working at Wendy's. I was paying for my flight lessons myself, paying for my college, and it was going slow because I didn't have the money. And when I was about probably 20 years old, a couple years into that journey, going to school and taking lessons, I felt stuck. I didn't feel like I was going to ever reach my goal of becoming an airline pilot. So you mentioned writing things down. And I pulled out a little piece of paper and I wrote down, I, David Sandstrom, commit this day to becoming a professional airline pilot. Every day, my actions will take me one step closer to reaching that goal. And I pulled that paper out every morning, and every time I felt a little discouraged. And I read that thing every day. And, well, it took about another 10 years, but I found myself working for a major legacy carrier based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I've been a captain now for close to 20 years. And I really believe that writing that down and having that mentality of a little bit every day, I'm not going to do this in a day. I'm just going to keep moving closer and closer to that goal day by day. And it worked. It absolutely works. It works. It can work for other people as well.
Well, you know, one thing that I do each year, and I'll pass it on to other people, is I've got what I call a dream box. And this dream box is a simple old wooden box from India. And every day I write a simple wish, something that I wish on that day. And I believe that action of writing it down, that wish, at the end of the year, there'll be 365 wishes in this dream box. But what it does, it's the initial planting of seeds that's something that I want. That's something that I intend to achieve. But if you don't take that very first action and at least write it down, the spirit inside you never takes that serious, because you can sit there and wish for things in your brain all day long, but until you take that first physical action of showing the universe that this is what I want, I don't believe it's going to ever happen for you. And in this particular case, you melted your purpose and your passion together when you wrote at age 18 that you were going to be a pilot, and you set that intention in stone. And so there was no way that was not going to happen for you. And it did.
That's true. Yeah. I came across a lot of people that said, "Oh, don't you know, everybody wants to work for the big airlines, but don't you know nobody gets there? Don't you know you'll never find the money for these flying lessons? Don't you know? Another pilot friend of mine, he used to call them the don't you know people. We didn't listen to that. I had blinders on and I made it happen. Writing it down is super powerful. One of the things I want to mention is a quote that I love from Michael Hyatt. And he says, "Thoughts disentangle themselves over the lips and at the ends of pencil tips."
Yeah.
And there's something very powerful about that. Yeah. You know, you can have these thoughts in your head, but when you have to clarify it and you put it down in writing, there's something about taking the intangible thought and turning it into something tangible that you can see, touch, and feel. And it's powerful. It really is. And I think people can use that with their health building goals.
Well, let's see if I can build on that thought, because at the first of every month, what I do is I actually write down specific things and I plant these notes all over my place. These wishes or these dreams. And so then I see them right there. Like I'm staring at one that I just wrote. It's the number 1 million and it's the word Oprah. Now, what those two things mean to me is that by the time that I do take my last breath, I'm going to have put 1 million books out there that people are going to have read. The Oprah is that I just have this personal goal of meeting and connecting with Oprah in a way. So, but I have these messages all over. And at the beginning of every month, I write them down and I tape them up, because I learned that there's so much power in doing that. Not even not necessarily even my messages, but messages to me. For example, in February of 2014, I started thinking about doing a speaking tour in Asia. So the Philippines was one of the first countries I wanted to go to. And so I contacted a leader there in the Philippines, and they wrote me back this message that is now taped up on a wall. It says this: however, you must consider the culture here in the Philippines. No motivational speaker has gathered that number of crowd yet here in the country. Events such as concerts, religious gatherings, even political gatherings can't even begin to sum up the number you want. A huge crowd here might gather for a concert or a band or an actor or singer, but life coaches, psychologists, motivational people, they're not going to come. So man, I taped that up. And I didn't use that message to chase me away from the Philippines. I used that message to make me get bigger. I went there and I spoke to 20,000 people over 30 days. 20,000. Awesome. So people who believe that we can't do it, man, that makes me want to do it too, just to prove to them that the reason you couldn't is because you didn't think you could.
Yeah, they impose their own glass ceiling, right?
Yeah.
I'll bet you ran across some really interesting people on your bike ride, and you probably heard some really cool extra mile stories. Can you pick one or two and share them with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if I can come up with a couple that are pretty different for you. The first couple I met, Brad and Libby Berkey in Colorado. They had both quit their jobs and decided to open a restaurant. Well, we probably all know a lot of people that decided to open a restaurant, no big deal. But what made this restaurant different was that if you walked into the restaurant, you would not see prices on the menu. At the end of your meal, you would not receive a bill. You see, at the same cafe, SAME, so all may eat, you pay what you can afford to pay. And if you can't pay at all, that doesn't mean you're still off the hook. You can pick up a broom and you can sweep, or you can do the dishes, or you can do something just to show that you earned your meal. And so for these people to have given up their careers, to put everything they had into opening up a restaurant that was giving itself away for free, totally was inspiring to me. Today, that restaurant, the same cafe, their model has become so significant that there are restaurants that have popped up all over the United States that are similar.
So let me make sure I heard you right. Their menu doesn't have prices on it. They just say, leave what you can.
Yeah, each day the chef puts out a menu of what he's prepared that day, and at the end, there's no prices and you receive no bill. You lay on the table what you could afford to pay.
I love it. I love that. When we were doing our bake sales, the first bake sale, we actually came up with a price. You know, we're going to charge 50 cents for a cookie and a buck for a cupcake. We had prices. And the next bake sale we did, I said, you know what, let's just pray about it. Let's pray that God gives these people a spirit of generosity. And let's just tell people we're taking donations, whatever's on your heart. And the revenue per person went way up after that.
Yeah, that's really great story.
People want to give. They want to be the kind of person that contributes to others. They really do. That's built into our nature.
Yeah, you know, and really that's what the extra mile theme's about. I mean, you were going the extra mile by giving away your product basically for free. You were just saying donation only. Somebody could have given you a nickel back, you know.
And that happened.
Yeah.
It did happen.
Yeah. But yet because you went the extra mile, it inspired someone else. It gave them a chance to go the extra mile right back. Yes. Right. That's what it's all about. I think when we become spirits that go the extra mile, we're going to find it coming back at us more. Man, and I got to tell you, we live at a time that's really challenging, and we each need to be people that go the extra mile to help remind people that we have the power to make a difference and we have the power to add value, but it begins with us. It begins with us putting it out there first. You know, you asked me about stories on the Extra Mile America Tour. I want to share one more because it's in line with what the show's about today, additionally about, you know, health and belief and what you think you can't do. So this one woman, it was in Ohio, after I was finished speaking that day, she was escorted up to me on the arm of another person. She was introduced to me. She said, hello, this is Sheila Holsworth. And Sheila then took over and said, hi, I'm Sheila. Well, Sheila was blind. But she hadn't always been blind. At the age of 10, the orthodontic headgear that she was wearing, we straightened teeth in those days, the rubber bands popped. And when the rubber bands popped, it gouged out both her eyes.
Oh.
So from the age of 10, she lost her eyesight. So now, if you've got that kind of physical disability, you think that you should forever live the life of a blind person. Well, she chose not to be that person. When Sheila Holsworth was introduced to me, I think she was about 47 years of age. At that time, she had the world's downhill record for having skied as a blind person faster than any blind person had ever skied down a hill. She was a water skier, a trick jump water skier. Not only would she grab the ropes and stay behind the boat and be pulled, but she would do flips and things. And she also rode a bike tandem across her state. You know, we are limited by what we think, and a person without eyes that does more than you and I are doing with their life, that's a huge wake-up call to get your act together.
Yeah, it is. Wow, that's a great story. I got chills. That's a really great story. What else would you like to share, Sean?
You know, I'm a big believer in if something's important to me, you hold on to that as tightly as you can. I might modify how I'm getting to a place, but I never modify the place that I want to get to. And I might modify my strategy to get there. You know, you were interested in that first bike ride that I took across the country. Well, it taught me a huge lesson. As we go along the way and towards our goal, whatever it might be, losing the weight, quitting smoking, you know, whatever your goal is, there's going to be lots of hard times. Yeah. So I had just pedaled my rear end off all the way to Salt Lake City, and I was in a truck stop, one of those huge truck stops where all those big, huge monster trucks. And here's a guy on a bicycle, and I'm in there with all the truckers, you know, man, the big trucker guys and me. And there's a huge map of the United States there from coast to coast. And I thought, oh, wow, I'm going to go see how far I pedaled because this is so cool. I've done this but you understand, I'm wiped out. I'm mentally tired. I'm physically tired. So I go and I look and I put my finger right there on the Pacific Ocean where I can see near San Francisco. And then I see where Salt Lake City is. And then I look where I got to go. Man, there was so far to go. Oftentimes, if we keep looking at the destination of where we've got to go to, we're going to become so overwhelmed, we're not going to want to get on the bike and continue to pedaling. Don't do that to yourself on your goal. Man, just pedal as far as you can today. Just do as much as you can this hour. Don't worry about the next hour, the next day, the next month. Just do what you can today. When I left that truck stop, I knew right then that I could never look at another full map on that particular ride again because it would just discourage me. All I learned to look at was the next day's ride. That's it. And we can always handle the next day's ride. So today on your big goal, do not get overwhelmed that you have maybe not done what you want to do or you're not achieving and it's becoming too overwhelmed. Don't change that goal. That goal was important enough for you to make it. So let that goal be important enough that you stick to it. Just break it into baby steps, man. To get to the letter Z, you can't go immediately from A to Z. You got to go through those 24 letters in between. The same thing with your goal. Set up the 24 steps in between, and then you can get there.
That's great. That's really awesome. We experience the same thing when we're in the flight simulator training. Every 9 months, pilots have to go back and do training, and we practice all kinds of emergencies. And the pressure is on because we can literally lose our license, lose our job if we don't perform satisfactory on these check rides.
Yeah.
And you can get overwhelmed by thinking about, after the break, we're going to have the fire and we're going to have the rapid decompression. And, I got to remember to get my mask on fast enough. But that's all going to distract you from doing the task at hand. You've got to think about, okay, I just had an engine failure on takeoff. The first thing I got to do is keep my heading straight. Next thing I got to do is maintain my airspeed. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is climb to 1,000 feet. When I get to 1,000 feet, I'm going to select the speed I need. And you think in those small chunks, and you'll get the job done. But if you start thinking in the overall, the big picture kind of thing, you will get overwhelmed. It just doesn't work that way.
Right, man. I so get that. I get that.
The baby steps work. They really, really do.
Yeah. It's and here's something too. By the way, the first, I write all my steps down to get to where I want to go. Okay. And my steps might change along the way. But again, as I shared, the last one doesn't. But the first one never changes either. And this goes back to what we said. My first step, David, is the same for every single goal. I write it down. Number one, I can do this. That's always my first step. I can do this. So my first step never changes, and my last step never changes of that goal. So, but all the other steps, they continue to evolve or transform depending on the success of the previous steps. Those steps can change.
Excellent. I'm going to share one thing that's along those same lines, Sean, is there's three crucial beliefs that everyone, especially someone dealing with a serious health challenge, but everyone should ask themselves these three questions. And that when the first one is, do I want to be well? And that sounds a little silly, but there are actually reasons why people may not want to get well. Maybe they've got a disability check coming from the government. Maybe they're finally getting the sympathy that they craved as a child but never got from their parents.
Mm-hmm.
So we all ought to do a little reflecting and say, do I really want to be well? Mm-hmm. Another one is, do I believe I can be well? Mm. The classic example is, you get a cancer diagnosis and the doctor says, well, nobody recovers from this. I give you 6 months to live, go home, get your affairs in order. Well, that can absolutely be a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've got to believe that recovery is possible if it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Believing that it's going to happen might not make it happen. There are no guarantees, but it sure makes it a lot more likely if you believe it can happen. That's a huge belief that we all got to look at. And another one is, the third question is, do I deserve to be well? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Maybe someone thinks somehow God is punishing them for all their bad deeds, or this is karma coming back to get me, or something along those lines. We've got to just sift out those kinds of thoughts and just stop them in their tracks and say, no, I'm not going to have any part of that kind of thinking. I absolutely deserve to be well, vibrant, and healthy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But the thing I've found out is life is a challenge, and life continues to throw things at our day every day that knock us off course, and our thoughts start to drag because life starts to knock us down. And unless we've created a system to keep ourselves playing at our A game inspired, life eventually takes its toll. And along your line of those three questions, I'd like to share something that maybe one or two of the listeners might really resonate with them about how I hold myself accountable every single day, because I also have three questions that I wake up with every single day. And this is how I begin my mindset every single day, for all of my days. First question I ask myself is, what am I looking forward to today? Because I believe that you can find something to look forward to today. You're changing your positive energy from the very beginning of your day. It's not about what do I have to do today? It's about, what am I looking forward to today? Question number two is, who can I serve today? Who can I help? Who can I empower? What person out there am I thinking about that I'm going to make a difference for today? So number one, what am I looking forward to today? Number two, who can I serve? And number three, what am I grateful for today? Because I believe that I have found with myself that if you start your day with these three morning questions, you've decided to take control of your thoughts, your thinking, your feeling, and you're directing your day from the beginning. What am I looking forward to today? Who can I serve today? What am I grateful for today? Those are the three questions that I use every day that hold me accountable to living how I live.
I love it. That's really good stuff. There's a lot of truth there, Sean, and the Bible addresses this stuff too. And I kind of feel like when you're a follower of Jesus Christ, as I am, all truth is God's truth. So when someone has a truth, it should align with what we see from the Holy Scriptures. And one of the things that we're taught in there is that we are in control of our thoughts. We are volitional creatures. We have free will. And the Bible instructs us to exercise that free will. In 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, it says, we are taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. And then over in the book of Philippians, it tells us to dwell on whatever is true, whatever is lovely, honorable, noble, praiseworthy. Think on these things. In Romans 12:2, we're told to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. And then we find in the book of Proverbs, chapter 23, verse 7, as a man thinks within himself, so is he. So if we have control of our thought lives, and we do, we need to consider what thoughts we're going to allow in, what thoughts we're going to reject, and the thoughts that we choose to ruminate on throughout our days, because they will have a powerful impact on our physical health and vitality.
One of my favorite words in life is that it's changed my life more than anything is this word gratitude. Gratitude. I have found that I can change my energy when I start changing the number of times I say thank you. I can start changing my energy and my thoughts the number of times I start saying thank you to the things that are bothering me, irritating me, or if I can't do anything about. I learned this lesson when I was walking across Spain. It was one particular day, and I thought I was going to beat the rain, and I got caught in a valley between two mountains with nowhere to stop. And it came down so hard, I felt like there were 1,000 water hoses coming straight down on me. Now that was bad enough walking in the cold and the rain, but I was walking on this one clay road that ended up soaking up the water so fast that the road started to sink. And every step, eventually I started to sink past my ankle, up my shin. And each step I would have to lift my foot out, and my foot kept getting heavier and heavier because of this mud that was on it. And the rain was coming, and it was cold, and I was stuck, and my feet couldn't move. And I started saying, this really sucks. And I started thinking all these bad things. And then all of a sudden I heard this thought in my head, hey, Sean, you've never done this before. You've never done this before. And you know what? You're going to make it through. You're going to make it. So be grateful. And so I started saying, man, I'm thankful for this opportunity. I'm thankful because I've never done this before. And so I started almost laughing at the experience I was having because I turned my heart from bad attitude to positive gratitude. And I've learned that that's the way that we turn things around that happen to us. Turn your heart from bad attitude to positive gratitude, and you start to change your life and how you see it, and how bad things that happen to you can make you bigger and better.
I totally agree with that, Sean. And we cannot separate the mental, emotional component from our physical component. So when you have the right attitude that you're talking about, you just so eloquently put into words just now, when you have the right thoughts in your mind, because of the mind-body connection, that will translate into positive outcomes in your physical vitality. So I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Sean, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with the HM community.
Captain Dave, it was my privilege to be on board with you today. Thank you so much for getting us up in there and getting us back home safely today. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks again. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Sean Anderson. He is such a pleasure to be around. He has such a positive energy about him that it's really contagious. If you'd like to learn more about Sean or hire him to speak at your event or check out some of his books, his website is SeanAnderson.com, and he spells his name ShawnAnderson.com. He's a 7-time best-selling author. His latest book is Amicus 101, the story about the pursuit of purpose and overcoming life's chaos. He also has 2 Facebook groups, Extra Mile America and Extra Mile World. Don't forget, this episode is brought to you by my book, The Christian's Guide to Holistic Health. In those pages, I give you detailed instructions on how to maximize your health potential by aligning your life more fully with God's design for spirit, mind, and body. If this biblically based message is resonating with you, what are you waiting for? Go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/book, and order your copy today. For more, go to davidsandstrom.com. In the show notes for each episode, you'll find links to all the resources that were mentioned, as well as a full transcript with timestamps that you can download for free. In addition, I always include a content upgrade with each show, which is a free download that is designed to help you go deeper with that subject. Once again, thank you for listening, and I'll talk with you next week. Be blessed.